Thưa quý vị, sau đây sẽ là phần trình bày với chủ đề từ tuyến tính đến tuần hoàn. Đây là người sẽ chia sẻ đến cho tất cả quý vị về cách mà doanh nghiệp của ông đang dẫn dắt và đang chuyển đổi như thế nào để thích ứng được những yêu cầu mới từ mẹ thiên nhiên và cả khách hàng của doanh nghiệp đặt ra. Xin được cùng chào đón lên sân khấu Tổng giám đốc của Nestlé Việt Nam, Mr. Binu. Please welcome on stage.
Xin chào and good afternoon. Sometime in the middle of December, my management team and I decided to go to the northern part of Vietnam and really see and feel for ourselves how much is the real impact of plastic pollution here in Vietnam. We visited a craft village, we visited a plastic village, and we went to a landfill nearby. And this is what we saw. Piles and piles of rubbish, so much so that it was overflowing into ancestral tombs of villagers living in the area. And we decided to walk into that mountain that you see behind. A mountain filled with garbage, plastics, metal, organic waste, the size of about 30 football fields. Every day we were told 650 tons of garbage is dumped into this area. The Monterey report in 2020 shows that there were about 900 such landfills in Vietnam, and over 80% of them are not treated. The problem with these landfills is that the organic waste over time starts emitting methane. And methane, some of you may know, is one of the deadliest greenhouse gases, 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and obviously causes massive, massive climate change issues. And it's not just that. The organic waste over time also creates a liquid called leachate that's high in ammonia that leaches into the water resources around, impacts human life, impacts animal life, and impacts plant life in the area. This was not how nature intended things to be. If you look at nature, one species' waste is another species' food. Things grow, things die, but they grow back into the soil and to make the soil even more fertile, creating a biological, natural circle. But it's us humans, in a way, that have completely disrupted and broken this natural cycle that exists, that was supposed to operate in a certain way. So the question really is why? And why is all the human activity that we are doing really impacting climate change, and as a result, leading to food shortage, leading to biodiversity loss, and potentially even destroying humanity over time? We all know this. This is not a new story. But the question that all of us should ask as business leaders in this room today, and acknowledge the fact that businesses today are part of this problem. And we've got to do something about it. Let me explain the way most businesses operate. Most businesses today are responsible to our shareholders. And as a result, we all know what needs to be done. We know what needs to be done to solve this problem. But there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that almost all the top Fortune 500 companies in the world, and even more, have pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050 or even earlier. That's the good news. The bad news is 40% of them do not have clear scientific targets to get there. And many of them are falling short of the glide path commitments that they made. Now, why is this so? We believe there are two reasons for this. The first is that many companies believe that there is a cost of doing sustainability and the shareholder is not going to pay. The second reason is that many of us believe that to consumers, this is not yet a big issue. And consumers don't really look at this while making brand choice decisions. Especially in this part of the world, developing market like Vietnam, do consumers really care about companies and their sustainability practices? Most of us think not. But the reality is we are wrong. A survey done by Bain last year across the world showed that consumers actually in the developing markets care as much and sometimes even more than their counterparts in developed markets. Take a look at Vietnam. The percentage of consumers who say that sustainability and environmental and social consciousness is one of the most important things for them when they choose a product is even higher than Japan, even higher than Singapore, and almost as high as Australia. But here's the irony. The irony is the consumers feel it's not their responsibility. It's the responsibility of corporates and the government, especially here in Vietnam. Vietnam has one of the highest incidents of consumers thinking that this problem needs to be addressed by companies. 40% of them want us to act. So if we truly believe in doing business and at the same time caring for the environment, the time is now. Companies who take this seriously, who take this responsibly, will be rewarded with the consumer's wallet. So what exactly is the problem? Today, most businesses operate in what is called a linear economy, which is often referred to as the take, make, and the waste model. Let me use a concrete example that many of you would be familiar with. Take the case of a plastic water bottle business. Today, to make this water bottle business, we take resources from the earth, convert that into PET resin. That PET resin is converted into a PET bottle. Water is filled into that PET bottle. A consumer consumes this, throws it out somewhere, which eventually ends up in landfill, causing all the problems that I illustrated at the beginning. This is the reality of today. But we cannot continue like this. We've got to move into a model that we can learn from nature. A biological model, or at least a circular economy model that doesn't lead to this massive problem. So what exactly is the circular model? This model is a bit different from the linear model in that it's all about making, using, and recycling as much as you can. So let me take the same example of the water bottle. How can you change that model? It all has to start with belief that you can change it, and it has to start from design. So we took a call about 2 years ago to say, we've got to start looking at this model differently. And we partnered with a company called Duitan, which I understand Duitan is in the room today. And we said, let's start using recycled PET instead of using virgin PET. So using recycled PET, we now make these bottles made from recycled PET. Consumer consumes it, throws it out, but we create an ecosystem together with Duitan to make sure what is thrown is picked up, packed, and sent to the Duitan factory to recycle. And that recycling process generates recycled PET resin, which then goes into making the bottle and then completing the loop. So there are really three principles of this circular economy model. And the first and the most important thing is about design. Designing out waste and pollution. And once you do that, how do you make those products, keep them in use as long as you can? And after that, it's about regenerating new systems. But I'll spend a little bit of time on the first one, about design, the most important thing. Let me use an example that I quite like. Some of you, maybe unlike me, who go to the supermarket very often, you buy fruits and vegetables. And the thing that you notice now more and more, even in a place like Vietnam, is when you buy fruits and vegetables, sometimes they come like this, covered in a shrink plastic film, using plastic materials to protect it. Now, why do they do this? Why do supermarkets do this? The primary reason is to enhance the life of the fruit or the vegetable by keeping the moisture in and the oxygen out. But there's a problem with this. Every time you consume one mango, one avocado, one cucumber, you remove the plastic film, and there is a 99.9% chance that this goes into a landfill somewhere. There's a company called Appeal, which saw this problem. And they said, can we look at this a bit differently? The scientists of Appeal actually discovered something, that all fruits or vegetables actually have a natural barrier in the peel. Every peel is naturally designed to keep the moisture in and the oxygen out. But sometimes it's not enough. So what they did is they looked at the profile of what really makes this plant-based stuff protect. And they found certain lipids that exist in the peels of fruits and vegetables. And they simulated the same lipids, and they created a powder consisting of the building blocks of a peel. And this powder is distributed to their partners. All the partners have to do is to dilute it with water, soak a fruit or a vegetable, or even spray it, dry it, and that's it. The life of a fruit or a vegetable goes up 2 to 3 times by simply making this process. It's a plant-based process, completely edible. No recycling required, nothing. By design, this solves a circular economy problem even before it becomes a problem. But of course, solutions like this, to some extent, are rocket science stuff. You don't come across these kind of solutions every day. But the planet cannot wait for technological marvels like this to come. We've got to start doing things little by little to the best of our abilities. So at Nestlé, we've made a pledge that we will design all our packaging materials for recycling. And today, 86% of all the packaging material that we have already been designed to recycle. Take the case of a Maggi sauce. Small things that you can do to make a difference. One, we used to have a shrink film on top of the cap to protect the cap as a double protection. We took it out. We realized it's not really required. We had a peel off as a tamper-evident thing, which really cannot be recycled. It goes somewhere and that's it. We took it out. We found a different way to lock it. We changed the color to a light color because a dark color is extremely difficult to recycle. Small steps can make a difference. One of the things we also did is, on the same bottle business, do we really need plastic bottle all the time? Or can we do with the glass bottle that's sitting in front of you? Of course, it's more expensive. It's 2 to 3 times more expensive. And so, in channels where they're willing to pay that, why not? Milo ready to drink is another example. 3 years ago, we took the call to say 100% of all the plastic straws, we replaced it with paper straws. 100%. It costs us 3 times more. And we lost consumers in the process because the consumer experience is not as good. But we did it because we believe it's the right thing to do. Nescafe 3-in-1. We're moving from polyethylene to recycled polyethylene, just like the water example I shared. And the last one is on the Lovey bottles that many of you probably have at home or in your offices. The large 5-gallon bottles. Now, these are actually not even recycled, they're reused. Every time the water gets over, somebody collects it, it comes back to the factory, it goes through a process 24 times. And at the end of that 24 cycle, it's recycled. It's crushed, made into recycled PE, and starts all over again. Small differences, small things that can make a difference. But packaging is not the beginning and the end of the circular economy. We are very, very proud of the work that we do on the coffee side, where we look at the end-to-end value chain on sustainability. And every aspect of that value chain, there's a circular economy model that's built in. Take the case of what we do on agriculture. On agriculture, we source about 20 to 25% of all the coffee that Vietnam produces in the 5 provinces of the Central Highlands. We work directly with 22,000 farmer households, and we supply them high-yielding, disease-resistant, low-water need coffee plantlets. 56 million of these we have been supplying for the last 10 years. And we've rejuvenated 56,000 hectares of coffee farms in that region. Now, what it does is, we have been able to prove that you can use 40 to 50% less water, 20% less pesticides, and farmer incomes have actually gone up 30 to 100% simply by doing intercropping. We are encouraging farmers to move away from just planting coffee trees to coffee trees plus forest trees plus avocado trees. If you go to one of these farms, they look like a jungle. They don't look like a coffee farm. But for the soil health, this is a circular economy. The soil health improves so much by having this multi-crop that we can continue to do this cropping forever and ever. Otherwise, 30 to 40 years, the soil health would deteriorate so much that nothing would grow from there. And we encourage all the farmers, all the processing, the coffee husk that is left behind goes as manure into the coffee. We encourage them to move to solar to process the coffee. The second step of the process is in our own factories, in the production centers that we have to make coffee. We, of course, moved to zero waste to landfill many, many years ago, but doesn't end there. I'll get into that a little bit more. And the last part is on the consumption. On the coffee, we have a process that's very similar to the one that I shared with you on Lovey. A circular economy process where we're moving to more renewable materials and also looking at collection through PRO Vietnam. Let me share a little bit about the coffee beans to bricks model. So you all know how coffee is produced. You go to a coffee shop, you ask for a cup of coffee, they give you a cafe soda or cafe denda or an espresso. There's always coffee grounds left behind. We have the same in our factories as well. You can imagine when we produce tens of thousands of tons of coffee, how much of coffee grounds are left behind. 100% of these coffee grounds, this is absolutely amazing material for fuel. 100% of this coffee ground is then used as a fuel to drive our boilers. 76% of our boiler energy comes from these coffee grounds. But the interesting thing is it doesn't end there. Once the boiler runs, at the end of it, there are quite a lot of materials that are left behind. There is sand. At the end of the boiler cycle, the sand looks something like this. And what do we do with this sand? We take this material, convert it into bricks. And these bricks can be used for construction, just like any other brick. The process also leads to a lot of ash that's left behind in the boiler. Because when the coffee grounds burn, it leads to ash. This ash is one of the best biofertilizers that you can find. Very rich in magnesium, very rich in iron, and this ash we supply to fertilizer companies as biofertilizers. And it doesn't end there. The wastewater that is used to make the coffee, we treat that wastewater, and 100% of that water is then potable and reused. You can even drink that water. But there's something that's left behind, is the sludge that you see here. This sludge, again, is absolutely amazing biofertilizer. Very, very rich in minerals. Again, this is sent to a fertilizer company. Almost nothing is wasted. Every single thing has a use that's reused, goes back again into the circular economy model. So just a few takeaways just to end this session. The first is, we all know we are causing this problem. Humans are causing this problem. The second is that, unlike what many of us believe, consumers today are getting more and more ready to look at sustainability, and they want us to take charge of this. Third, as business community, it is important for us to be leading this movement towards the circular economy. The fourth, it all starts with leadership, with the right mindset. We have to drive it from the top. It requires also multi-stakeholder collaboration. One company cannot do this on our own. Most of the examples I've shared, we've had partners to do this. Lastly, technologies are emerging. Be on the lookout for what's coming and then try and integrate that into your business. Coming back to the landfill picture that I shared at the beginning, the question that we have today for us is not about what we can do to address this problem of pollution, of landfill, and how we move from linear to a circular economy. The question is, what are we as leaders in this room going to do about this? And be proud of the fact that we move away from being part of the problem today to being part of the solution, to make Vietnam clean, green, and beautiful, and the world a better place. Thank you. Come on.
Thank you for your sharing, and please remain on stage, Mr. Binu. Xin được cảm ơn ông Binu Jacob với những chia sẻ vừa rồi, và cũng xin được trân trọng kính mời lên sân khấu ông Giang Thanh, thư ký tòa soạn của Forbes Việt Nam sẽ lên để trao tặng kỷ niệm chương cho vị diễn giả của chúng ta. Xin được trân trọng kính mời.
Chúng tôi nghĩ rằng đây là một bài chia sẻ vô cùng đặc biệt và rất chi tiết, nhiều trọng tay hơn nữa dành cho đại diện của Nestlé Việt Nam.